Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to PSGL. This is PSGL F3 for season 41, and tonight we're headed to one of the most iconic circuits in motorsport, Spa-Francorchamps, for round two, the Belgian Grand Prix. Last week in Australia, it was all about Polimachi, who delivered a statement win to open his campaign. A perfect start with pole position and the race victory. It's a huge turnaround from last season, where reliability and connection issues cost him dearly. This time, the McLaren driver looked calm, composed, and completely in control. Behind him, Milan Diossi impressed on debut, pushing right to the checkered flag to claim P2, just 8 tenths behind. DeMarco completed the podium for P3 for Alpine, a strong, solid start for the driver, fresh from a strong season F6. Demachev showed great consistency in P4, and Melvin, stepping in as a reserve, made the most of his opportunity with a strong P5 finish. And there's plenty of pace through this grid, and already the early title contenders are beginning to show. In the championship standings, Polimachi leads the way on 17 points, ahead of Milan on 12, DeMarco with 10, and Demachev on 8. But we all know it's still early days, and Spa can flip everything on his head. And speaking of Spa, there's no track quite like it. A 7-kilometre, its longest circuit on the calendar, with 19 corners winding through the Ardennes Forest, from La Source to the iconic Eau Rouge and Rayon, and down the Camel Straight. This track is a roller coaster of elevation changes, courage, and pure precision and speed. Well, of course, it's always unpredictable here. One moment it could be dry, next it could be drenched. I remember last season in PSGL, it was drenched, and we had multiple different drivers in different positions. And so we're all set for round two of PSGL F3 season. And all eyes on Polimachi. Can he go back to back and build early championship momentum, or will Milan, DeMarco, or one of the chasing pack strike back in the forest of Belgium? If you remember last season, Polimachi was up there, but unfortunately he lagged out the session. And his teammate, I believe, who was, at the time, I'm trying to remember, it was Luke, who unfortunately spun in towards Lacombe after making contact, and it dropped him out of contention. But my name is Jamie Morris. I'll be taking you to the action with an 18-minute qualifying session and a 22-lap race. And next to me is Milan Langer, who is my co-commentator and dear friend. How are you doing, mate? You all right?
I am all right, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to this race tonight around such a legendary circuit. I've visited this track twice, and it's always great to be back at one of the most iconic circuits on the calendar. So I'm looking forward to what this race has in store for us tonight, and I'm intrigued to see if Polimachi can keep his streak up. Of course, like you said, he won a race last season, but besides that, he had a string of bad results or bad luck. So if you can replicate what he did last week, or get another podium finish, then we can definitely count him in for a potential championship contender. So it's going to be an important race tonight. So let's see what he is going to be able to do. We're out here in qualifying. Almost every single driver out on track, apart from one of the RBs and the Kick Saubers. But first, to start their flying flap, is going to be Swifty in the Mercedes. So let's take a look on board with the Mercedes as he rounds the final corner with a very wide approach to get the best maximum exit down the start-finish straight and down to the braking zone of the first hairpin. Need to get an optimal exit as well, because now you're going to be flat out all the way up the hill, down the Camel Straight towards the Lacombe chicane, turns 4 and 5, but first have to navigate Eau Rouge and Rayon, two legendary corners, but nowadays pretty easy to take flat out, at least in dry conditions. DRS will be open down the Camel Straight, and next up is a very twisty part of the track, a right-left chicane, the Lacombe chicane. Let's see how he's going to tackle that. He can really attack the inside curbs on there, but you have to be mindful on the exit here to not get dragged along into the grass, but he makes it work and keeps it in the white lines now into the braking zone of another hairpin Purcell. And then it is what used to be called no-name corner through turn 9, dipping a wheel on the inside, and on the outside in the grass and in the gravel, but hasn't lost too much speed. Now flat out through Pouan, one of the most legendary corners in Formula 1, and now towards Stabilo, and final couple of corners in this middle sector, the longest sector around this track. Have to be mindful of the curbs on the inside and outside here as well. And now one final right-hander, and then you'll be flat out all the way towards the bus stop chicane, which nowadays is not really a bus stop chicane anymore, but it is still called that now. Flat out towards Blanchimont, a very quick left-hand kink, where we saw a beautiful overtake back in 2015 between Max Verstappen and Felipe Nasser, but nowadays very easy flat-out corner. And now the final braking zone uphill as well, so you have to be mindful with the rear end stepping out. And let's see what this lap time is going to bring us. Swifty will come across the line with a big oversteer on the exit, but it's going to be a 41.2 to start off with, and that puts the Mercedes nicely at the top of the times, but who is going to be able to beat that?
Yeah, massive wheel spin out the final corner in towards the Bristol chicane, and Polimachi, last week's pole sitter, goes quickest with a 40.879, and those are the time and lap times I'm expecting from this qualifying session. Just a low 40. I don't think we could get anywhere near the 39s, but Napo goes P3 with a 41.4, who had a torrid time at the Australian Grand Prix, a returning F3 driver, but unfortunately didn't quite kickstart his debut back in Australia, as DeMarco goes P4 in the Alpine. We've got more people to cross the line. Junkie Angel is in P2. Remember, he had great qualifying, but swiftly dropped back through the race after just not having a race pace at all, whether it was just a setup issue, the tyres wearing out too much, the tyres overheating, or just didn't have the confidence in the rain, as Milan goes quickest by 7 thousandths of a second ahead of Polimachi. And if you remember last time, Polimachi was being chased down by Milan, but unfortunately Manan Diozzi could not get him, and he'll be looking for payback this time around. But Polimachi in P2. Remember, McLaren won here last season. It was in the name of Jeroen Vizsla, who had a dominant performance ahead of ILT Bompia at the time in the Red Bull. And McLaren have won here before as well. Can they continue that streak overall in this qualifying session? Evan Nasland, who finished, I think, P4 at the Australian Grand Prix, is now on a flying lap coming through the famous Blanchimont section where we saw Valtteri Bottas spin out back in 2018 due to the tricky conditions, as he makes his way down towards the Bristol chicane, getting all slowed down. Traction is very important at the exit of the corner. As you can see, a bit of oversteer to kick in as he goes towards the top of the timing sheets with a 40.818, as the times are super close around the Arden Forest. This track is 7 kilometers long, and yes, we've got about 4 drivers in the 40.8s. Can you believe it? It's unbelievable how close these margins are considering the length of the track. But the top 4 separated by under 800ths of a second there, with Melvin in P5 with a 40.9. So 5 drivers inside the 40s. We've got 3 drivers left to set a flying lap so far, which is Zad Tatos, not really representative for his standards. Levi in P15 and Alan Miko in P16. They're on board with the Racing Bull driver as he heads down towards the Bristol chicane. He goes very important at the exit right. We see massive wheel spin there once again, as a lot of people seem to have massive wheel spin, too much power input there, too much traction, unfortunately, well, lots of traction, as he tries to get the power as quickly as he can so he can make his way down towards the line, but unfortunately just suffering massive wheel spin there. So the first lap times are done and dusted, and it is Evan on pole and McLaren once again looking very strong as they were at the Australian Grand Prix. Although Evan can't quite have it his own way in Australia, fell down to P12 despite having a great qualifying session, and he'll be hoping to bounce back quicker as well. I think he was running with his teammate early doors in the race, but I think a safety car or VSC just quite interrupted and unfortunately just dropped backwards. But Milan is in a McLaren sandwich, and so far McLaren are looking really good, just like they were last season when they were the championship contenders. Dimash, remember, he had a poor qualifying back in Australia, and he finished in P4, swiftly made his way through without any trouble, of narrowly avoiding all the chaos, and currently in P7 there in the Haas. So decent attempt there from Dimash in P7. KDRN is P10 in the Kick Sauber, and he also struggled as well. Qualified, started in P11 and finished there too. There he is, the Kick Sauber, just finished the lap time inside the 41s there, as everybody has done their first flying lap on the softcore powered tyre. So every single driver has got a lap time on the board, but I dare say that Zad Tatos and Mighty Wombats could definitely improve on those lap times, because not representative what they could do. Good evening, David. How are you, mate? Nice to see you in the chat. But McLaren and Paul with a 40.8. Let's see if anybody can improve. Polymachi and Junkie Angel are currently out there on the outlaps. Now, Junkie Angel would definitely love to improve, because he was running inside the top 3 early doors in the race, but just kept dropping backwards just significantly as well in the race, and just didn't have the race pace to contend with it. I think he spun at the final corner too, but his great qualifying pace in P4. This time, can he convert it into a good position? We're about to find out. But second drivers then on their second wave of outlaps go for their second run, as Animachi is currently on a flying lap. This is not practice, by the way, this is qualifying.
Ferrari just had a lap time to go up into P12, but the majority of the drivers are already going out for their second run. Of course, this is the longest track on the calendar, and with only 18 minutes, you don't have a lot of time in between stints or in between outlaps, so that's why they're going out quite early already. Mighty Wombat in P15, he's around 1.1 seconds off Edwin in P1, and he's the one to go out the earliest, and he will start his flying lap in a few moments time. And look behind him is Swifty as well, the man who did his first lap in the beginning of the session, so we'll keep an eye on what he can do. He's only around 4/10 of pole position, but it's down in P8. But the Haas driver is going to start his flying lap now, his second run, and let's see how much of an improvement he can find on this lap as he makes his way in towards the first corner, the hairpin, and then now accelerating outwards up the hill. He will go in a few moments time. First downhill and then steeply uphill, which is even steeper in real life. I have walked it when I visited the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix. It's just absolutely insane, the elevation change around this track. But Mighty Wombat now making his way down the Camel Straight. Let's see if he found some time in the first sector. Of course, the first sector being the quickest. He's down by 1/10 already through the first couple of corners, swiftly behind in the Mercedes. He is invalidated already, so he will not be improving on this particular run, but he does have the time potentially to slow back down, recharge and try again after this lap finishes. But Mighty Wombat now making his way through the middle sector, keeping it nice and tidy, not dipping a wheel into the grass or the gravel on the outside like we've seen some drivers do early on in this qualifying session. Now flat out through Pouon in 7th gear, and now will make his way towards this very tricky chicane, which can still catch you out. If you hit that inside curb at the wrong angle, it can really spin up the rear tires and will send your car into a big moment of oversteer. But he has kept it nicely within those white lines, but now has found an improvement in the middle sector, almost 2/10 up. So he was a tenth of a second down in the first sector, but now he's almost 2/10 up as he exits the second sector. So he's gained around 3/10 there, and now in these final couple of corners really can make or break your lap time in this final chicane. Let's see if he is going to take it right into the braking zone. Maybe a little bit too deep, not quite. Hasn't lost too much time now on the exit, where it's really easy to light up the rear tires a little bit too much. He crosses the line to stay in P15. He's lost a little bit of time once again in the final corner, and he will stay in his current position. Polimachi in P3 is up by almost 2/10 of a second as well through the middle sector. Let's see if he's going to be able to beat his teammates lap time as he rounds the final corner. Our championship leader is going to go quickest with a 40.552 with a brilliant lap time, already putting himself 2.5 clear of his teammate who is about to start his final lap. Milan in P3 is currently not improving on his lap. Neither is Chunky Angle, who has, I think he is backed off on his lap, so he is not improving. So Polimachi, once again, a very strong contender for pole position, it seems like. We'll keep an eye out on Milan, but he's only 6 thousandths up on his time. So he's going to have to hope for a miracle in the final sector, but he's really not going to gain 3/10 there. At most, he might be able to get ahead of Edwin as Demaika goes second, but only a couple of hundredths ahead of Edwin as well. 2.5 behind Polimachi, but a great lap time from the Alpine as we wait and see what Milan can do as he rounds the final couple of corners. Let's see, can he put himself back on the front row is the question. The answer is no, as he is unable to improve in the final sector, but Edwin is already up by 1/10 through the first sector. So the two McLarens are on absolutely flyer so far in this qualifying session. Edwin is looking to attack potentially his teammate's time right now as he makes his way through the middle sector. Is he going to be able to get anywhere close to that 40.5, and can he at least get himself ahead of the Alpine and make it a McLaren front row lockout for the time being as he comes out of the second sector? Let's see if he finds some more time. Yes, he has almost 4/10 of a second there for Edwin. He is looking to beat his teammate's lap time. Might be going into the 40.4s, maybe even 40.3 if he finds some more time in the final sector, but he's completely ran out of ERS right now, so he will be slowing down a little bit going towards that final chicane. Let's see as he goes into the braking zone sharply on the inside, and make sure to not get any wheel spin coming out of the final corner. Keeps it nicely foot to the floor. Edwin is going to go quickest with a 40.454 and beats his teammate Polimachi by just under 1/10 of a second.
Wow, such incredible fan margins, and it's McLaren 1-2, like you said, from Evan there, looking for payback after not scoring at the Australian Grand Prix due to his issues. Polimachi was the one that won, his McLaren teammate, but both McLarens so far looking very strong this season, just like they were last season when they had Jeroen Visser and Artem and also Diogo Silva too. But a 40.454 is the time to beat from everybody else. Can they beat it? But some people are quite far away. Let's see what other people are doing so far on their flying laps. So it doesn't look like many people are coming in a flying lap right now except KDRN, but I think he just finished one. Let's have a look at his first sector. He's 2.2 down, so he's up into P10. But what a storming lap time there from Evan in first place with a 40.54, with Polimachi in P2, DeMarco in P3 ahead of Milan Diossi, who finished P2 at the Australian Grand Prix. And Junkie Angle is P5 in the Mercedes once again. Another high qualifying position there for Junkie Angle. But like I said, in the race pace, he did drop back, got himself in a bit of carnage too. So we're just awaiting then the final qualifying times here at the Belgium Grand Prix as majority of people head back in the pit lane. I wonder if anybody else out there is currently on a flying lap so far. Looks like nobody is. So every single person is heading back in the pit lane, awaiting their final run, puts on a new set of soft compound tyres. Then we can get going once again to see who improves on their lap times. But so far, it's McLaren 1-2, looking good, just like it was at the Belgian Grand Prix this year, when I think Lando Norris took the victory ahead of Oscar Piastri, took the victory ahead of Lando Norris after Norris chose to go on the hard compound tyres, and it did pay dividends for him, even though the medias were completely shot as well on that day. Wet conditions, but turned it to dry. I do remember, though, the 2009 qualifying session, when it was Giancarlo Fisichella who took pole, a stonking pole position, a team that came from Spiker back in 2008, or I think it was Super Aguri at the time, and they took pole. But unfortunately, Giancarlo Fisichella could not convert it into a win, as Kimi Raikkonen overtook him, and I think Kimi Raikkonen's last win in Spa was back in 2009. And they usually call him the King of Spa with 4 wins. Lewis Hamilton currently has 6 wins around here, and I think Michael Schumacher has 6 pole positions. Michael Schumacher debuted here at the 1991 Belgian Grand Prix in the Benetton, I believe it was, and he definitely showed the world what he was capable of as well, with some very, very good results. Now we've got some people out of the track. Once again, it is Mighty Wombat, who is out there for the 3rd time in a row. Well, first time for the 3 times. He's always been the first one out there, and he's currently down to P15. So let's see, can he improve on a 141.8583? Got a bit of time to make up, but let's see on his last run, can he do it? He came out a bit early. Some people do like to come a bit early because they like to get 2 laps just in case they validated the first lap. But to be fair to him, it is a long out lap. I don't think he'll get 2 laps. So almost every single driver is out there so far on our laps. And the time to beat is a 140.54 set by Evan and Polimachi. 2 minutes left to go as we've got a stampede of cars making their way out of the pit lane for the final runs here in qualifying. And it's going to be super interesting to see who can demote both McLarens, because both of them are quick so far. Polimachi, the last week's race winner at the Australian Grand Prix, who put in a stocky performance, defending from Milan Dioso, who did not have the battery to attack him in the final stages of the race, and Polimachi did enough to score his first win. And also last season here at the Belgian Grand Prix, Polimachi unfortunately disconnected after being in a high position, so hopefully that does not happen this time, and he can have a good race from here on in, as he was teammates with Luke in the Haas. Polimachi is still in F3, but looking like a serious contender so far, with some good potential, some good pace. Every single driver out there so far in this qualifying session except one. Napol in the Williams is currently on a flying lap. I think he retired back at the Australian Grand Prix. Didn't have a particularly good season either last season in the kick-start, but he has been struggling. He has been outside the top 10. But what can he do here as he makes his way towards Eau Rouge and Radion? Absolutely flat out. No need to lift there. We saw an amazing save by Sergio Perez back in 2018 when he drifted through there and almost hit the wall on the inside as it started spitting down with rain. As we now make our way towards the end of the first sector, when we saw Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton make contact back in 2014. Napol is a 10th up in the first sector, so good indications already on his flying lap as he makes his way down towards Bruxelles. Downhill right-handed, very easy to lock up the front inside there. Want to take a wide angle through there to try and get a best exit. Now coming towards Jackie East corner, swooping in off the throttle, hit the apex on the curve on the outside again. Try and maximise the exit as we head down towards Pulwinger. Let's see if it's flat out. Let's listen in. Yeah, it should be flat out. No problem whatsoever. I think we may have to lift off during the race. Now coming towards the final chicane. This can be very difficult as well. Take a wide approach on the outside line, but I don't think many people like touch the curbs at the inside because it does unsettle the car. And also the outside of turn 13 there can be a bit tricky as well because it's just so easy to dip a win in the gravel, as Napol dipped a win in the gravel into Stavolo, and he's up by 0.2 of a second as he continues his way all the way down towards Bonchimon and the bus stop chicane. The bus stop chicane is also a place where overtaking can happen. Remember Rubens Barrichello back in 2010 when he smashed into back Alonso? And Alonso miraculously kept going. Same with Vettel and Button when they made contact down there in 2010 as well. Here comes Napol outside the final corner with the DRS open and the battery too. Where can he go? It's P10 in the Williams, and he just makes it inside the top 10. But what are other people doing so far? Polimachi is down in the first sector by 0.25 of a second, as I'm going to go aboard with DeMarco as he seems like he's closest towards the line in comparison to the rest. So let's see how he does. His progress now coming towards the final chicane. Nice exit there as he heads towards turn 14 and 15. Flicks the car in, carries the speed all the way through, gets back in the power. Look at this. 2 and a bit tenths up in the middle sector as Milan Dioso goes P3 with a 40.792 as he goes on the second row of the grid. Cannot defeat both McLarens, but what about DeMarco? He seems like he's on a very good lap time. What day is the race? David, the race is after qualifying, so immediately after qualifying. Hits the braking point, 100 meters, slow the car down, make sure you don't lose traction here. It's very easy to get on the power quicker than expected. Here he is towards the line. What's he going to be? Does he split both McLarens? He does. By, look at that, 4,000 of a second, separating Evan and DeMarco. But what can Polimachi do as he heads down towards the Buster chicane? Can he reclaim P2? Can he get himself on pole position like he did in Australia? Rounds the final corner, crosses the line now, and he can't do it. He improves, but he can't improve his position as Evan is down and invalidated his lap time. So it is the McLaren driver who is on pole position as DeMarco splits both cars up.
And that was super close at the front. Pole position there for Edwin by 3,000ths of a second. So very close, around the longest track on the calendar. What an insane qualifying this was. And Polimachi will start in P3, just ahead of the man who finished second behind him, Milan in P4. But I was riding on board with him in the beginning of his lap, and coming out after the chicane, out of turn 7, he got caught out by the curb on the outside and got dragged into the gravel and grass. So surprised he still managed to find that improvement, but definitely not his optimal lap time. So his pace might still be quicker than it reflects right now in P4, but something very close between the top three. Look at that, 66,000 of a second from Edwin towards his teammate Polimachi in P3. So, well, a lot of contenders in this race, all very close all throughout the field. So basically the entire top 15 is within 1 second. And Levi in P16 didn't get a final run in, 1.1 seconds off. So incredibly close around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, which should make up for an incredible race as well. It was dry, at least in qualifying. Let's see what the weather is going to be like in the race. It seems like it's going to be dry as well. Still quite a bit cloudy up above, but no rain in sight for now. So at the moment we can focus on, I think, should be a one-stop strategy for mediums to hards, but that is going to be the question as well. When do you make that pit? Do you want to go for the undercut and gain track position and eventually get back into a DRS train, or do you want to stay out longer? So if you start on the hards, it's always a predicament what tire you're going to choose at the beginning of the race. But it's going to be a very interesting run, I can say that, coming out of turn 1 to go all the way down towards Rouge and Belgium and all the way down the Kimmel Straight. You really don't want to be leading out of turn 1, do you?
No, you don't. We saw that back in 2018 when Lewis Hamilton got outdragged by Max Verstappen. Sebastian Vettel. Here comes Sebastian Vettel twice in 2018 and 2019 as well. Both Force Indians almost got involved on that particular day as well. Lando Norris getting outdragged by Oscar Piastri as well this year as he had a terrible exit out of Eau Rouge and Radion, and Piastri was all over the back of him in the slipstream and got past him with straight line speed as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all unfolds going down into La Source. Slipstream is very powerful and effective as well, so starting first place isn't necessarily the norm. But we've seen sometimes in the past where people defend. Last season, I think Vizsla defended his position despite being in first place in qualifying, so he kept the guys at bay. But we'll see. I think it's all tactical as well, how you place your car going towards Eau Rouge and Radio. Because if you're too close behind up the hill, like Sebastian Vettel was in 2017, he didn't have enough effective slipstream to get past Hamilton on that day as well, and he had to stay behind him going in towards Lecombe, but he perfectly timed it in 2018 when he got past Lewis Hamilton, and 2019 too, as Charles Leclerc won on that day too for Ferrari for his second win after a tribute for Antoine Hubert as well, unfortunately, who passed away in 2019. Thoughts to Antoine Hubert as well. But we're all set for the lights then at Belgium. Welcome everybody to PSGL F3 Belgium Grand Prix at the legendary Spa-Francorchamps. After a thorough qualifying session, it was Evan Nasland who took pole position for McLaren, a phenomenal lap around the 7-kilometre roller coaster in the Arden Forest. Just behind him, DeMarco lines up in the front row for Alpine, continuing his strong start to the season after that P3 in Australia. Polimachi, last week's race winner and current championship leader, starts from third, right in striking distance as he looks to extend the early lead. Milan Dioso, who finished runner-up in Australia, is fourth, and we were desperate to challenge once again for the victory. Behind him is Junker Angle in fifth, Melvin in sixth. Both showed some strong pace through qualifying, and with a long run up towards Lecombe, they know a good launch could change everything in the opening meters of this race. But Spa is never straightforward with 19 corners, sometimes unpredictable weather, and some of the most demanding section in racing from Eau Rouge and Radion to Piron and the Buster chicane. It's a track that tests concentration, bravery, and a racecraft to the limit as well. 22 laps awaits his await us here tonight after an action-packed one at the Belgian Grand Prix. Can Polimachi go back-to-back and cement his early dominance? Can Milan strike back, or will Evan convert his first pole into a maiden PSGL victory? This is round 2 of PSGL, and it's time for a Spa-Francorchamps, and it's time for the lights to go out very shortly as the drivers will get the signal when to ready up then. So, of course, we saw a massive crash in 2012 with Romain Grosjean, Hamilton, Kamui Kobayashi, Pastor Maldonado, and Fernando Alonso on that day too. We saw a massive crash in 1998 with that massive first pile-up as well in the wet conditions. It has to be red flagged. Spa-Francorchamps, one of those tracks that can deliver, or sometimes can be a little bit boring, but it all depends though what the weather is like around here too. 2025 wasn't too bad, although it was a bit of a null for the whole race. We expected Norris to catch Piastri on those hardcore part tyres, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But Lewis Hamilton, his last win was here at the Belgian Grand Prix in 2024. Russell did win initially, but got disqualified due to be underweight, and Hamilton took the victory with Piastri in P2. So let's see what happens going down in towards turn 1. It's going to be a very important run, very important launch to get out there through Eau Rouge already, and all the battery deployed too in defence mode. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what the tactics displayed by the drivers. Hopefully we can get ready up soon, and I cannot wait for this 22-lap race. I don't think safety cars are quite common around here as they used to be anymore, because the runoffs are quite high. You don't really see many safety cars around here in Belgium unless there's a massive crash somewhere. But hopefully we can keep it nice and clean going down in towards turn 1. Turn 1's prone for chaos, as you saw back in 2012 and 2018 too, and 2011 as well, when Bruno Senna ploughed into the side of somebody and caused that melee. We saw some great overtakes as well in Belgium around the outside. Mark Webber, I think, on Fernando Alonso. Kimi Raikkonen too on Michael Schumacher in 2012. So you can do some moves. It's all about commitment and bravery and skill and the setup as well, if you can do it or not. But yeah, it's going to be an intense, interesting one, and hopefully it can get ready up soon. It is round 2 here in PSGL. Let's see what happens going down in towards the first corner. I remember 2018 as well, when Force India went into administration, lost all their points, then somehow finished, I think, 5th and 6th. I think Force India had a good result here back in 2018 because they won the second row of the grid and Ocon qualified P3. But Verstappen, I think, made his way through. Ricciardo, I think, was out of the race due to making contact with Kimi Raikkonen. Force India generally go well around here, although I said that. Aston Martin didn't go well around here last year either, but it's been a strong track for Force India. Always seems to be there as well in the mix. But it is 8:30 here, and we're just waiting for the signal to ready up for the Belgian Grand Prix, and we can get going down in towards turn number 1. A heavy braking zone, of course, very pivotal to get good traction, good exit. And I think we're about to go away then. The lights are out and we are underway here. The Belgian Grand Prix in the background. Somebody has spun his Junker Angle, who's had a miserable start, but down the inside goes the McLaren driver in towards turn 1. They go. The Alpine holds the outside line. Contact going in towards turn 1 there between, I think, a Williams driver who is facing the wrong way. But now we're going up towards Eau Rouge and Radion. DeMarco, regretting taking the lead, might be having a terrible time on the main straight, because you can see that Evan and Polimachi are right behind the Milan as well. Here we go then, down towards the Camel Straight with 3 abreast. We've got Evan in the middle there, overtaking DeMarco as we go side by side. Here we go, 2x2 in towards the cop. Around the outside goes Evan. Can he make it stick? No, because DeMarco's still there, has the inside line for turn 7, and he maintains the lead of the Grand Prix. Polimachi is defended, but down the inside he goes in towards Bruxelles. Can Evan make it stick? He can't. Milan is scrubbing away with Polimachi there for P3, still on the inside in towards No Name, Jackie X, made slight contact. Neither driver is willing to give up so far as we head down in towards P1. Eventually, Polimachi has conceded defeat, and Milan Dioso is up into P3. Somehow, DeMarco maintained his lead despite giving the guys behind a massive slipstream, and he still remains in first place and controls the pace. But that one, we saw a bit of carnage going down towards turn 1. Not quite sure who those drivers were, but so far so good for DeMarco in P1.
What a start from the Alpine, and surprised he was able to maintain that lead going up the hill, but a clean start from me. Got the better launch being on the mediums compared to Edvan, who was starting on the hards, the first one to do so, inside, the only one to do so inside the top 7. Then Junkie Angle in P8 doing the same thing, but there was contact at the first corner with Alamico in P14 and Avai in P15. Those collided unfortunately at the entry of turn 1, and you saw Richard Swifty getting it all wrong off the line. and he finds himself all the way back down in P16. There's a fight going on already as Milan is looking to go around the outside of the other McLaren, going in towards Turn 1, and the Ferrari of Melbourne. But that is a switchback move there from Milan. He's going to have to better exit with the mediums, and he's going to go and get ahead there of Edwin. DRS has been enabled, and it's a crucial move for Milan to get ahead of both of the McLarens. They're going side by side in the back of Potomacci and Melbourne. Oh, so close, and contact between the two. Swifty has retired from the session, but DRS open for all of these drivers, and Edwin is looking to get back ahead of the RB, but not quite able to close that gap. And Potomacci has succeeded at staying ahead of Melvin for the time being. He was in P5, just ahead of Slav in P6. And Di Matijev in P7, and then it's Junkie Angle in P8, the second runner on the hards. So everyone inside the top 7 start on the mediums, except for Edwin, who's now down to P3. But now for him it's going to be key to stay close to the top 2, stay within DRS range, because at the moment they will have the tire advantage, and he will eventually have it towards the end of the race. But he's looking to extend that first stint, stay out longer than everyone else around him. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to be able to tackle that in the second stint, when all the others are probably going to be in a DRS train. So that is something for later on in the race. But the Maiko has stayed in first place. He's 0.7 of a second ahead of Milan, who had to do some recharging after overtaking both the McLaren drivers, but now is looking to get close to the Alpine and potentially challenge him for the lead of this race. At the end, as we're at the end of the second lap, the Alpine has remained in the lead of the race for now, but the question is, how long is he going to be able to maintain that position? Because Milan is definitely closing in right now, 0.5 of a second as we go in towards the final chicane. A little bit deep there for Edwin in P3, losing a couple of tenths on the exit as a result of that, and his teammate is all over the back of the gearbox of Edwin. But going towards turn 1, Potomacci, he's got very little ERS in the battery and is unable to make the move right now, but with the better exit, once again slightly tapping the back end of his teammate. But looks like Potomacci is choosing to stay behind for now. But is Milan going to do the same thing in P2? Is 4 tenths away from the lead as we go up the hill, make that 3 tenths, and now 2 tenths. He's deploying the battery, he's got the DRS, he's got the ERS, he's got the slipstream, and Milan is going to go to the inside of the lead from P4 on the grid. He's going to take that, and he's going to take the lead of this race here on lap 3. Milan up into the lead, up at the P1, the Maiko the motor down to second place, and Edwin in P3 is 0.8 of a second behind already, and he needs to get back closer towards the top 2 if he wants to have any chance of a potential race win, because he needs to stay within DRS range, needs to stay within touch of our 2 race leaders. But they change the lead on lap 3 as Milan is ahead of the Maiko.
This is exactly what happened in Australia when Milan didn't have a particularly good qualifying start. He just made his way to the field. He's really good at progressing through the field, and he's already taken the lead already on lap 3 after starting way down. But Milan Dioso, a man on a mission so far, after finishing in P2, second best towards Potomacci, who was currently down in P4. So McLaren's didn't really get a good start, but what are McLaren going to do in P3 and P4? Because evidently Potomacci seems to be faster McLaren on the medium compound tyres, but at the same time though, Evan in P3 will have a better tyre advantage towards the latter stages of this race. So what they do they orchestrate a driver swap? Evan and Potomacci give Potomacci a chance to try and attack DeMarco and Milan Dioso in P1, because now it's actually under pressure from Melville behind in P5, because it seems like Evan was under massive pressure, and I think the Racing Bull goes deep in towards the bottom chicane, so it might encourage DeMarco to get closer and closer as we enter lap 4 out of 22 then, as we head down in towards turn 1, these guys being in a massive DRS train of course, as Melvin still applying the pressure on Potomacci in P4. Is Potomacci due to stay there in P4, follow the DRS on the back of his teammates, or are those two going to swap now, because the hardcore powers at this stage in the race are not particularly the great tyres so far. The medium still has that IRR advantage, but here comes DeMarco. I think he may retake the lead immediately as we head down towards the Kemmel Straight. DRS enabled for the LP driver, a simple sweep past, and he retakes the lead of the Grand Prix. However, behind us, it seems the Ferrari is still pressurising the McLaren driver. Got close, but unfortunately for him, not close enough as he stays behind for the time being. Is Evan holding up his teammates? Should Potomacci go through, but Evan still, Melvin is putting massive pressure on the McLaren in front of us there. I think Potomacci could be frustrated that his team is on the hard compound tyres and not progressing forwards at this stage in the race. But the top 2 then have swap places once again, and they have complete control of this Grand Prix. Does Milan and DeMarco P1 and P2, because in P3, P4 downwards, it is so difficult to overtake in that massive DRS train. You've got to do something. Well, you've got to try and do something completely different here as well, to try and overtake your rival, try and catch them off guard in an orthodox place, and try and make them overtake the guys ahead as well. But yeah, Melville will be frustrated being stuck down in P5. We've got a few people in the hardcore power tires behind us as well, which is Junker Angle, who lost to 3 places at the start of the race, so he didn't have a particularly good start like he did in Australia. Kingsman in P9 ahead of KDRN on the hardcore power tires. Napple's also on the hardcore power tires too, so we've seen a few hard runners. But could this be a driver swap? It looks like he's squabbling in the braking zone between Podimachi and Evans, so it looks like the two McLarens are scrapping away for P3 and P4. No driver swap so far, no team orders implemented in McLaren. It's going to go all or nothing here, but Podimachi is running low on ERS, and he's been so frustrated being stuck behind his McLaren teammate on the hardcore power tyres. Tyres not up to, well, it is up to working window, but the medium compound tyres at this stage will still be better in comparison towards the hards as we make our way now towards Eau Rouge and Radion. What are McLaren going to do at this stage? Are they going to swap and allow Podimachi to get closer towards the top 2? And once again, Milan Dioso has the DRS and simply walks past him with the DRS wide open and goes up into first place. Meanwhile, you can see that the Ferrari's under pressure as we see Slav down the inside in towards the com, but couldn't quite make it stick, and he has to stay behind for the timing. Contact between the Williams. Oh, Sauber in a spin there. I think that's the same place where Bottas and Latifi spun back in 2023, I think it was, or Sargent, who took out Bottas on that day. But unfortunately, KDR, and it is such a tight corner through there as well, a tight squeeze. One of you is bound to go off the track. We've seen plenty of times where people are bounded towards the calm and not enough space is given between each driver, and one of you ends up paying the price for it as well. So he's dropped down to P11 for the time being then, as it's still Milan Dioso in P1 ahead of DeMarco in P2. It is quite a stalemate race so far, as you expect, all these guys being stuck in a DRS train. But we're about to find out later on in the race how it all unfolds with the pit stop strategy, etc., how Evan will do on the new 70 compound tyres. Looks like he's got some decent pace now on the hard compound tyres. Now they're warmed up towards operating window and seems slightly better than the top 2. Maybe we can capitalise on this and try and take an advantage away from the top 2 on the medium compound tyres.
Gap's now around half a second towards Demaiko, and he's got around the same ERS and battery as well as we go in towards the final chicane. Milan still in the lead of this race now, once again going a little bit deep in towards the chicane, just like he did on the previous lap as we enter on lap 6 of 22. Still a long way to go, but like you said, the hard tires are starting to get up the temperature, and Edwin is finding some pace right now, and he's able to break free from his teammate. It's now 8 tenths separating the two McLarens. So we go towards Eau Rouge and Radion. Is it going to be a swap between Milan and Demaiko? I wonder. Gap's around 6 tenths of a second. Looks like Milan is using some battery as well to try and stay in front of the Alpine. And Demaiko now, with the help of DRS, is closing in, but it's not going to be close enough to go for the move, as Jungi Angle is able to get up to P7. Also on the hard tires, so it seems like the hards are going to be getting quite similar towards the mediums, if not quicker, at this stage of the race here on lap 6. And you can see that Edwin is really close now up to the back of the two race leaders. Now for him, he needs to get ahead of these two and potentially build a gap whilst they are trying to extend their stint as long as possible on these mediums to have the freshest hard tires towards the end of the race. Well, I'm actually now 6 tenths behind in P4, and Melvin so stop putting the pressure on the McLaren driver as well, as he had to fight off Schlaf there for a few moments on the previous lap. And now Junkie Angle, let's see what he can do on the hards. He dropped behind a little bit at the beginning of this race, but now he's got some little bit of clean air to try and close towards the Ripple driver and try and overtake and get forward rather than backwards for the remainder of this race. We're at the end of lap 6 right now. Demaiko is now getting closer once more towards Milan in P1, and Edwin in P3 is also keeps getting closer towards our leading two, but they're still all within the DRS range all the way down to P9. That incident back in the Lecombe chicane unfortunately has broken apart the midfield a little bit, as gaps starting to form between P9, 10 and 11. So it seems like a little bit of DRS range, different groups forming at the stage of the race. We're on to lap 7 now. The gap is still 6 tenths of a second between our two race leaders. So I wonder if Milan is going to try and do the same thing once again, as he gets a lovely exit out of turn 1, and now the gap grows to 7 tenths of a second. So he might just try and stay in front of Demaiko at this stage of the race all the way until the pit window. Now the Alpine, he's going to have the DRS and the slipstream. Is he going to get close enough though to go for the move? I don't think he is. And Edwin is still staying behind in P3. And it looks like Edwin might be running a little bit higher wings in this race, which is why he's not able to make the move down the Camel Straight, as KDRN is up at the P10, getting ahead of Napple, and finds himself back inside the top 10, and now going to try and chase after the man who he made contact with a couple of laps ago in P9. And that is Kingsman in the Williams, who was getting very close to the back of the Matachev in P8 as well, struggling on those mediums. And Junkie Eagles really close up the gap now towards the top 6, 4/10 of a second. So the Hearts definitely appear to be the quicker tire right now in this stint, as the Mercedes goes a little bit wide there through Puon. But the mediums are starting to fall off, and the Hearts are ramping up in this stage. So that is going to make it very interesting indeed. And is Edwin going to be able to make the move on the leading pair, or is he going to wait until both of them pull into the pit lane in a couple of laps' time?
I wonder if we're going to see some pit stops, because lap 8, lap 10 is usually the pit window to open towards the mediums, the hardcore power tyres. So will some of these people think about down into pit lane? Maybe people at the back of the field like Polymachi, Melvin and Slav, and Machachev in P8 looking for an undercut, and these guys try and get a benefit. But remember last season as well, some of the guys pitted for an early undercut, but Juventus has stayed up very, very late and got him back towards the end of the Grand Prix. As Polymachi is in the pit lane then to give it his bit of compound tyres. Like I said, lap 8 towards 10 is when people decided to make a pit stop on the hard compound tyres. He hasn't really capitalised anywhere, has Polymachi. He's just stayed where he started down there as well. I think he lost a place towards the Marco on the first lap of the Grand Prix. But he hasn't really gone forward on his big compound tyre. He's been stuck behind his teammate, and now he wants to do something completely different and unorthodox. Here comes Evan then on the DRS. You can see the flashing light in front of us on the Alpine. Is this where he strikes? Is this where he makes a move? He pulls to the right hand side, the side by side, going towards the calm late braking skills, and he gets ahead. Is he in the corner? He does, and he puts himself up into P2. The great move there from Evan. Now he's forced his way through on the medium runners. This is looking good so far. Polymachi has rejoined on the P14, so watch out for him. The undercut could be very powerful there, as we've seen in previous races, and Polymachi could leapfrog the guys ahead. Now Evans in a comfortable position to try and overtake Milan Dioso for P1. He's looking very quick so far on his hard compound tyres. The hards starting to come into their own, better than medium compound tyres, and I wonder as well, will any of these guys decide to pit to respond to the undercut threat? Who's that going down the order? Is that Tatos? It is. He's spun in a very, very obscure place, I think, in the exit, no name, so he must have touched the grass on the exit or something, or touched the entry on the curb and spun the car around. He rejoins on the P14 and gets going once again. That's the last thing that Polymachi needs, is a VSC or a safety car to ruin his chances of doing the undercut on the guys ahead. But now we're making our way towards the final sector, and I wonder if any of these guys are thinking about pitting to respond to Polymachi's undercut threat, or try and stay their tyres longer to have the better tyre life towards the end and try and catch him doing the offset. Let's see if anybody decides to pit this lap. It doesn't. Yes, it is. It's the LP driver and Melvin and Slav who have all pitted to get off those big compound tyres. It looks like Slav is struggling there. Try and get in the pit lane as he double locks up, but luckily he does not speed in the pit lane. Remember, speed in the pit lane is very costly. It's no longer a 5-second penalty. It's a 10-second penalty, and that is detrimental to your race as well. 10-second penalty means basically your race is over, because there's no way you can pull 10 seconds of the guy behind even if you're pure pace. But here comes McLaren driver then, with the DRS wide open. This should be taking Caddy like a baby, and let's see if it is. With the DRS open, here we go. Closer he gets, and he makes the move down towards the breaker. So where's Polymachi rejoin? He's rejoined in P8. As we see, Santos unfortunately retire after his his issue in towards Jackie X, and unfortunately he is out of the race there. Polymachi's rejoined in P8 ahead of the Marco, and Melvin's about to make a move on the LP drive for a net, I think, P3 in this race. But Polymachi, interestingly, he has jumped the guys behind as well and rejoined in P8, which suggests to me when Milan pits, I think Polymachi will definitely get the better of him, and Polymachi could seize control of this race. But remember as well, Evan, Junket Angle, Kingsman, KDRN, Napol, and Mighty Wombat are extending their stint to go on the medium compound tyres. So they're going for a very long way. And plus Milan in second place has lost the DRS. You can clearly see how much time he's losing with those degraded tyres, unfortunately. So he definitely has to pit this lap, because he's constantly losing time and potentially be a threat and fall down the midfield, unfortunately for him. So he can be very careful. Does Milan Dioso in P2? He could well rejoin behind the guys who just pitted. Maybe Damash P13, depending how bad the tyre drop-off was during this race. As he heads down towards the chicane, I think he definitely got to pit, so he doesn't lose too much time towards the guys behind. He does pit this lap, and it should be a set of the hard compound tyres then attached to the car, and we'll see where he rejoins in comparison towards other people. We are missing the Alpine boys of the Granada, but he unfortunately is not here. We're missing quite a few people. We're missing the Aston Martin duos as well, and we're missing quite a few people, unfortunately, in this race. As we see, Milan Dioso then on the hard compound tyres. Polymachi gets ahead with ease as well on the hard compound tyres. big undercut threat there as Milan Dioso rejoins in P9. But like we saw last season, the better tyres is the way to go. Juve was way behind, then later on in the race, he overtook the guys on the older hardcore power tyres and went on to win. So maybe the Milan Dioso tyre life may pay dividends later on in the race when the guys ahead might struggle.
As the Michael is going to make his way past Melon to retake that position. He's up at the P8 again, ahead of the Ferrari. The gap towards Podemachi is around 2.5 seconds, but it was absolutely crucial there for Milan to stay within DRS range of these two cars ahead of him, because he has that tire advantage. And if he gets past the two of them, he can try and chase after Podemachi, because he does have that 2-lap tire advantage at the very end of this race. So he's still not out of contention for a potential race win. At the moment, he still needs to warm up these tires, as he is struggling a little bit on his outer. He was the only driver to stay out for 9 laps on the mediums. Right now he's 18 seconds behind Melvin, trying to warm up these hards. But now it's Edwin back in the lead of this race. The man who started from pole position, he's got a comfortable 3-second lead towards Jungi Angle in second place. And then a couple of drivers still need to make their pit stop. So Polamachi is our net race leader in P7, with the Michael following closely, 2.8 seconds behind with Melvin very close behind. And Milan has dropped now outside DRS range, so that might hurt him, but he is using the battery to get back within that DRS range, and he does so successfully. So he will have the DRS once again down the start-finish straight and down the Camel straight as well. As we go on to lap 11 of 22, we have hit the halfway point of this race. And how long are these harder runners going to stay out on their tires, and when are they going to make the switch towards the mediums? You want to have the freshest mediums towards the end of the race to be really able to fight. If you pit right now, your mediums are going to be too worn out by the point you get to the race leaders, and you will not be able to fight. So he needs to extend this stint by a couple of more laps to really have those tires at the very end of the race when they matter most, in the final couple of laps. As Polamachi is closing the gap towards the drivers who haven't pitted yet, but he's also extending the gap towards the Michael and Melvin as they swap around once more. Melvin now back into P8 ahead of the Alpine, but the gap was 2.9 seconds between themselves and Polamachi. It definitely seems like Polamachi's got a lot of pace in clean air, but he needs to not burn out his tires, so he doesn't have any tires left at the end of the race. But at the moment he's doing a good job, and he's closing up towards Mighty Wombat in P6, as Milan has now got back within the DRS range, 0.6 of a second behind, and a full 2 seconds now ahead of Slav in P11, who is in a bit of no man's land, doesn't have any DRS, doesn't have anyone around him, which is always tricky around a track like this, where you got a couple of multiple DRS zones, and it's really difficult to catch up to a DRS train. So looks like at the moment he is stuck there in P11 as there's a move being made. It looks like the kick Sauber there might have run wide there coming out of turn 15, might have clipped the company outside, which has allowed Kinskman to go up to P3 in the Williams. So now the Sauber is back in a Williams sandwich as they make their way towards the final chicane. And then they all stay out for at least one more lap. Polamachi gets ahead then of Mighty Wombat, a crucial move in towards the final chicane. And the McLaren drives up to 6th place. Now is a 5-second gap to bridge towards Napol in P5, who of course is still yet to make his pit stop in a few laps time, as Polamachi runs a little bit deep in towards turn 1, but he shouldn't be under pressure from the Haas driver behind, whose stars are way more worn out at this stage of the race. Let's see if Melvin and DeMico are going to swap around once more. The gap between the two is 0.7 of a second right now, as they swap around once more in P3. But DeMico is using the battery to close the gap. But will he go for the move once again? Looks like Melvin is saving the battery up, and here comes the Alpine once again with the help of Slipstream, DRS, ERS. The Ferrari goes to the inside to not defend his position, and through goes the Alpine. Bit of contact between the two on the apex, but the Michael is now back up into P8, but the gap is still growing towards Polamachi, but it's around 4 seconds now between the McLaren and the Alpine. And Polamachi, he is pushing very hard here indeed, and right now does have the best cars in hand to go for a back-to-back victory. But of course, still 10 laps to go. He needs to keep his tires in shape to be able to hold on in the final couple of stages of this race.
I'm always skeptical about the hard to medium strategy, because you're going a long way on the hardcore power tyres, but you barely have the lap counter to try and get the guys ahead. You barely have the time as well. So how long are they going to extend on the hardcore power tyres? Because Polamachi is catching their rear knots as well. I don't think 11.7 seconds is a huge deficit to make up when Evan pits on the next lap. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how long they're going to take the hardcore power tyres in towards this race. He's still continuing, and it's 7 kilometers, so the lap counter is shortened. It's 22 laps only in this race, and they won't have enough laps to catch up towards the end of this race, as Napoli is in the pit lane to get rid of his hardcore power tyres, put on a set of mediums, as Milan Dioso gets a 3-second time penalty. That is huge indeed for his pursuits, for the potential, maybe. I think the race could be out of hand, but second place in this race, a 3-second penalty for Milan Dioso, the man that finished P2 at the Australian Grand Prix. He's on the back of this battle between Melvin and DeMarco in P6 and P7 there. The Ferrari driver all over the back of the Alpine with the DRS wide open. Milan's right behind too. Let's see if the Ferrari can use the DRS to his advantage and get past the Alpine. And Milan as well, watch out for him. He may be able to make his way through on the Alpine driver. Here comes the Ferrari side by side with the Alpine as he slots back into position. You can see Melvin take, he goes a bit deep in the corner. Here comes the Marco around the outside, but can't quite make it stick as he stays behind for the time being. The Ferrari driver just outbroke himself there, but luckily stayed on the track. Here comes Milan down the inside towards Bruxelles. It's going to be a risky move there. Can he make it stick? He's still got a nose on the inside there. Now coming towards Jacquier's corner. Can he do a nice under and over? Try and get a better exit of the Alpine. No, he can't. He stays behind for the time being. He has our better tyres, of course, comparison towards these two. And I dare say better pace. But unfortunately, he does have that 3-second penalty. And once again, he exceeds track limits. So the exit poo on there, which might not help his case whatsoever. Any more infringements could lead to any more of a penalty as well. But it doesn't seem like 6th place downwards is catching Polymachi's. That undercut has worked into Polymachi's advantage. He's really utilised that really well and built up a big gap. And it seems like 6th place downwards can't be caught, can't catch up towards Polymachi. He could find himself on the podium or maybe a race win. What's the gap to the leader between Polymachi? Is 10.7 seconds, and the pit lane loss is quite significant around here. Junkie angles in the pit lane, and once again, Evan continues on those hardcore power tyres. He's barely going to have enough laps to try and catch the guys ahead. I think Polymachi's in a comfortable position, but Evan out there in first place is going to run out of time, and therefore not catch the guys ahead. So I'm quite concerned about his strategy by not pitting. It is a bit sceptical horse mediums around here as well, try and go for a long stint and have the best tyres towards the end, but it doesn't always work out because you just don't have the laps left towards the end of the Grand Prix to catch up. And Evan's going to push like crazy when he does pit onto semi-medium power tyres. The only way they can save him is possibly a safety car. As I say that, the Ferrari driver is in the pit lane to retire from the race. As here we see the RP once again on the back of the Ferrari as he slips past through, ease with the DRS wide open, and up into 5th place once again. That's a net, I think, P3 for him. The battle for P3 is spiced up between DeMarco and Melvin, but unfortunately Milan Dioso does have a 3-second penalty to exclude him from this battle for P3 because he does have the penalty over his shoulders. The only way he could hope that the guys ahead also pick a penalty as well or make contact. But so far, so good for Polymachi in P4. He's right back at Kingsburn, ready to overtake. And let's see when Evan decides to pit, because when he does pit, it could be a short distance, about 6-7 laps he might have towards the end of the Grand Prix, and that's definitely not going to be enough to try and catch up towards the guys on the older hardcore power tyres. What do you think, Milan?
Well, he might not be able to fight for a race win, but he definitely could be a threat towards the Michael, Melvin and Milan, who, if they keep fighting like they did on the previous lap, are going to lose a lot of time towards the McLaren driver. And the gap between those guys at the moment is 14 seconds towards Edwin. So he's going to have around 7 laps time, as he is going to finally make his pit stop at the end of lap 14. So he's going to have 8 laps, to be precise, with his outlap included, to catch up to the Alpine, the Ferrari and the RB. Let's see where he is going to come out, as he is going to fit a brand new set of mediums underneath the McLaren. Also into the pit lane are the Kick-Sauber and the Williams. So everyone at this stage will have finally made their pit stop, as through goes the Maiko, Melvin and Milan in PT 2, 3 and 4. But where is Edwin going to come out? Is he going to be behind Schlav and Jungi Angle as well? That is the question. He might be out just ahead or in between the two, in fact. Yes, he is. And he might grab a DRS down this straight. And if he does, then he can get back past Schlav immediately. And he will only be 2 seconds behind the likes of Milan, Melvin and the Maiko. So it is looking very good right now for the McLaren team, who could potentially get a 1-2 finish. So the Maiko is 4.5 seconds behind Polymachi, but Melvin and Milan are very close behind, and through goes Edwin out to P5. Junkie Angle gets ahead as well on the mediums. It looks, wow, how close is Junkie Angle to the back of the McLaren. He went 1 lap earlier for the undercut and finds himself within DRS range of the McLaren. So Junkie Angle might get dragged along by Edwin towards the group ahead, but the gap is now 1.5 seconds, and we're going to have 7 laps after this. And if he gets within the DRS range on this lap already, he can definitely get himself up to second place at least to secure a potential 1-2 finish for McLaren, which would be incredible in their Constructors' Championship fight and in their Drivers' Championship as well. But Polimacci at the moment looking quite comfortably for a second win in a row, as the gap is still around 5 seconds towards D'Amico, and the deficit he has with a tire advantage, only 1 lap for D'Amico. So at the moment he is not gaining time on Polimacci, and don't think he will gain enough time at the end. But here's Edwin, 0.8 of a second behind Milan. He's already within DRS range, and following him is Jungi Angle, who still, well, might actually have a chance of a podium finish, but he does need to keep his tires in shape at the end, because he did make a pit stop 1 lap earlier compared to Edwin. Fast up race as well now for the Mercedes, but here is the McLaren driver. He's close to the back there of Milan, who has a big moment coming out of turn 1 as the back end stepping out completely, and the McLaren is looking to get past immediately on this lap. On lap 16 of 22 is closing in on the RB. He will have to slipstream the DRS and the ERS, and he's going to pull to the inside, and Edwin is going to take P4 of this race immediately as to the inside, going in towards the Comps again. Nothing Milan can do, and the McLaren driver is up a position, and now is going to try and chase after Melon and D'Amico. And if he could overtake Milan with that ease, then for sure he will be able to get past Melon and D'Amico on the next lap or 2 and put himself in second place. I don't think he will be quite able to catch up to his teammate, but he could get quite close, and it does mean that McLaren are potentially looking at a 1-2 finish here as well.
Indeed it is. How quickly can Evan get past these two? Because if he does get past these two with ease and quickly, he might go around it. Oh, as the Ferrari just covers every single part of the racetrack there, making sure he doesn't go on the inside or outside, place the car in the middle of the track. But I dare say the inevitable is coming. It just depends when, not if. Maybe down at the Buster chicane, if he can get a good exit out of here, obviously with the fast right hander, the better grip of limited compound tyres. If Evan can dispatch these two quickly, does he have a chance to catch Polimacci, or is it a bit too much? Has Polimacci just done enough? Here we are then with the slipstream. Down towards Blanchimon we go, flat out through here. Will he make a move going down in towards the Buster chicane? Is he confident of the brakes? As we see the Ferrari down the inside, it's super close to the LP driver, sees him coming and reacts, but Evan gets a nice push, but it's a 2 for 1. Through goes Evan, what a move. He's up into P2. It's a double overtake, and that was super easy there. Thank you very much, guys. Whilst you two are squabbling in the braking zone, I'm going to go through and take P2, and now I'm going to catch my teammate for P1. Down, we've got somebody who retired, unfortunately, that is Napoli. But what a move there. Evan was patient as the Alpine tried to go down the inside, but couldn't quite pay it off and had to give up P2. But he might get it back. There's no battery left for Evan. He's under massive pressure. Here comes DeMarco back on him for P2, so he's not done with yet. Here comes Milan as well on the Ferrari driver. As we head down towards the con, we go side by side between these two. Will he make it out of stick? Milan's got the outside line converted into the inside line. Nice move there from Milan. Around the outside, had the inside line going towards turn 7, had the momentum and better speed, and got ahead. But this is bad news for Evan because he wants to focus his teammate, but now he is stuck behind the LP driver. He has to get past him once again very quickly. He had literally no battery left on that straight, hence why it was easy pickings for the LP driver. But can he get past him now as we make our way down towards the fire chicane? I think he'll wait for the DRS, but when he does overtake him, I presume on lap 18, he has 4 laps to try and catch his teammate Polimacci. I think he's definitely going to be a McLaren 1-2, but I don't think Evan can catch his teammate there in first place unless something miracle happens for him. As the Ferrari gets a 3-second penalty. I bet Evan must be so frustrated that the Alpine overtook him, but this time round, after the DRS on the back of the Alpine driver, and I think he'll wait patiently, calm, calculated and methodically to overtake him as well, then focus on his teammates Polimacci. But that's helped Polimacci a lot with the Alpine getting back in front, because the gap was like 4.8, now it's 5.7 between first and second place. But Evan's got a lot more ERS to store. He saved a lot of battery this time around, so he should be able to get the Alpine with no problems whatsoever as he makes his way down towards the main straight to end off lap 17 towards 18. Obviously he doesn't need to go for the first corner, he knows there's another DRS. I think that was very smart as well. When Evan exits the pit lane, you let the car behind go through and have the DRS at the back of him. That's quite smart to back off there and have the DRS so the guy behind doesn't overtake and waste your time to the slow speed, mid-speed corners and leaves him with more time. But this should be easy pickings there from the McLaren driver. No contest at all. Here comes the DRS. Wide open as he overtakes him, goes up into P2. Now there's 4 laps left to go in this race. The gap is 5.2, and I think that's a bit of a tall order. Maybe you get the gap down but I think Polymachi is safe. Evan needs some blistering qualifying lap times if he wants a chance of catching his teammate, who's going to get possibly his second win of the season. Side by side between the Haas and the Kickstarter there too, with the Williams just involved in the background there too, as they go side by side. As we head down in towards Brussels we go. You can see Kingsman's just waiting patiently. These two go out wide. This is allow Kingsman to go through. No, he makes contact with the rear end of the Haas driver as these two concede side by side again, but a bit pitched to the inside line there. No space, really any space. Now they make contact as we head down in towards Puon there. These drivers be very careful fighting with the outskirts of the top 10 there as well. Kingsman just in P10, but Sauber around the outside. Is it in the final chicane? Nope, not this time. Stays behind. He is on the better set of mini compound tires. Look how much time Evans gained already. The gap was like 5.1. Now it's 4.3, but he still needs to gain a little bit more time every single lap to possibly get in the DRS range of his own teammate here. Try and get his first win of the season after a disappointing one at the Australian Grand Prix. Now we're going to kick Sauber and the Haas going side by side as we make our way down towards Blanchimon, the flat tire left-hander. Let's see if keep it nice and clean. They do for the time being. Enough spets, but they do meet again as we head down towards the Buster chicane. Kingsman is just waiting patiently as we go side by side in towards the final two corners between the Kick Sauber and the Haas. Is this going to be a similar situation where Kingsman gets them both on the exit? Here comes the DRS wide open. He gets one driver. Can he get two? As we head down in towards turn one, Kingsman just a bit too far back. But oh, look down the inside goes the Haas. And here comes Kingsman with the better switch back. Through he goes, but the Kick Sauber just stays ahead. Now the Haas is side by side with him as we head through Eau Rouge and Radion. Kingsman's brave enough to eke it out with him and get up into P9. The next driver for him is the Kick Sauber with no DRS at all. He should be easy picking into ears. He goes up into P8 ahead of the Sauber driver. And here comes the Adjective side by side going in towards the Con. We go. Is it going to be deep in the brakes? It is. He goes off the track and has to bail out there, and he stays in P10. But the gap's gone down to 3.4 seconds between the top two for McLaren. Can Evan catch his teammates? It's possible, but he might run out of time. He needs some more blistering laps and sectors. Try and get that gap under a second. He's dropped DeMarco out of his DRS range. The gap is 3.5 with about 3.5 laps to go in this race. It's intensifying, but can Polymachi hold on for his second win of the season, or can Evan get his first win of the season? However, big win for McLaren, 1-2.
Yeah, it's going to be a great result for the team, but I have to say that the extra lap that it costed him to get past the Alpine might have costed him dearly, because now the gap's 3.3 seconds and there's only going to be 3 laps left, so he needs to gain at least 1 second a lap and then overtake his teammate as well. I think it's a very big task, especially knowing that these stars are only going to get worse and worse compared to the hards that are underneath the McLaren of Polymachi. Of course, he does have the old stars of on the field right now, Polymachi does, but those mediums will start to wear out, especially in these final couple of laps. The gap's 3 seconds. He's fully got ahead now of DeMarco. The gap's 1.8, and Junkie Angle is looking for a podium finish. He's getting closer towards the Alpine. The gap's 7 tenths of a second. He doesn't have a lot of battery left to try and overtake the Alpine, but it doesn't need to on this lap. Just needs to before the very end of this race, so it might get very close for the final spot on the podium, as Milan is also there in P5, but of course he got that 3 second time penalty, which will cost him and probably limit his chances of getting inside the top 5, and I might have to settle in the end for P6, as Melvin is still within 3 seconds. As the fight continues on there in the midfield between KDRN in P8 and Kinsman in P9. As the Kickstarter gets back ahead of the Williams, and they've definitely got away off the Haas now down in P10, 1.6 seconds behind. But at the moment, Edwin, the gap is still 3.4 seconds. In fact, he hasn't gained any time on this lap. He's lost a little bit of time towards Polymachi, his teammate. So that might indicate that his mediums are starting to fall off already. And if that is the case, then he might have to look backwards rather than forwards, because DeMarco is only 1.3 seconds behind. And if the mediums underneath Edwin are starting to fade from him, the Alpine can just get within DRS range and might go for the move on the final lap of this race. So Edwin, I don't think P1 is going to be in sight for him. He's going to have to settle for P2 at best, but he needs to keep his stars alive to be able to stay in front of the Maiko, because the Maiko is still looking quite good on his stars and is able to maintain the gap towards Edwin, around 1.5 seconds right now. As we go on to the penultimate lap of this race, the gap still 3.3 seconds between the McLaren, so Polymachi definitely seems to be safe for a second consecutive win this season. The best way to start off his season, and it's looking like it might be a McLaren 1-2 as well. Junkie Angle once again close to the back of the Alpine. If these two start fighting, then that would be good news for Edwin in P2. But at the moment, Junkie Engel still staying behind the Alpine and might be waiting until the very last lap of this race to try and make the move. And surprised to see that he still got this space, because he's got the oldest mediums apart from Mighty Wombat in P12. But his mediums are older than the ones of Edwin, and at the moment they still have similar pace. It seems like, as we're on lap 21, a little bit wide there for the Maiko coming out of turn 7. But not too wide to get dragged along by the curb on the outside. So we're halfway down the penultimate lap of this race. Milan's still in this train as well, and he's looking to get a 3-second gap towards Melwin. The gap's now 2.2, so he's gained a couple of tenths already compared to the previous lap. So he might be able to still get a top 5 result, but he needs the 2 cars ahead of him to get a move on. He cannot afford to get stuck behind these two and see the gap shrinking once again towards Melvin in P6. The gap's now 1.6 seconds between Edwin and the Maiko, so if the Maiko wanted to have any chance of still retaking that second place, I think that chance might fade away from him right now, as Edwin is doing just enough to maintain the gap towards the Alpine. But the fight is definitely not over yet, because Alpine now has to look backwards towards Jungi Angle in P4. The gap is 0.7 of a second, and he will have the DRS going on to the final lap of the race. And he also has got a ERS advantage to work with. So is the Mercedes going to be able to pull it off on these very worn out mediums, or is it going to be the Maiko to steal away that final spot on the podium as we enter the final lap of this race? Polamachi is well out of sight. He for sure can race on towards the finish line. Edwin in second place looks to be quite secure as well, but who is going to take that final spot on the podium in P3?
Junkie Angel right behind DeMarco. DeMarco finished in P3 the Australian Grand Prix. Can he make it 2 for 2? But he's got Mercedes right behind him on the mini compound tyre. So is Milan as well. Here he is up through Eau Rouge already, and I think the Alpine driver will be defenceless, as here comes Mercedes with the DRS wide open. The Alpine go defensive as he gets closer and closer and closer, dives to the inside, and Junkie Angle is up into P3. Nothing DeMarco could do about that whatsoever. He's on the podium. It's the Mercedes driver, but all eyes to the front of the field. But for Polamachi, it's been a sensational recovery from the McLaren driver. Well, he lost ground earlier on, dropping positions at the start, but the undercut was perfectly timed. He rolled the dice early, committed to the strategy on lap 8, and it's been paid off so far. He's been well ahead of the guys behind ever since the second stint. He got caught up behind somebody in the first stint and was stuck in that DRS train. From there, he's been absolutely flawless, managing the tyres, keeping his composure through the field, and withstanding the pressure from both Evan and DeMarco behind, as there's yellow flags behind us as well. I think that's Melvin who's gone for a spin in the Ferrari. But every lap, every corner, every braking zone, after the second stint, he is being controlled as he makes his way now towards Blanchimont. He goes. This has been an absolute sensational drive, a masterclass in patience and execution. After a difficult season 40 full of frustration, Polamachi has come back fighting in season 41. 2 races, 2 wins, and what a statement this is. From early tries to other tries, Polamachi wins the Belgium Grand Prix to make it 2 for 2. What a start to the season for Polamachi, and it's a McLaren 1-2. This is a perfect start to the campaign for Polamachi in first place. What he wanted last season, but unfortunately he couldn't get it. Junkie Angle finishes a P3 for his first podium of the season. Evan makes it a McLaren 1-2 with a great strategy call, and what a race as well. Fantastic for Polamachi to maintain composure and withstand the pressure from the guys behind. He didn't look uncomfortable whatsoever with his teammate behind him. Was on the mini compound tyres, but well done to Polamachi. An absolute superb, sensational race from him. Absolutely controlled it from the second stint when he decided to pit to the undercut, and the undercut really paid off for the Italian driver as he was stuck in traffic, Milan.
Well done to Polamachi, a well-deserved victory after a superb second stint. Ever since that pit stop, he didn't look back, and he took that win, and is going to take maximum points once again. So an ideal start to his season, ideal start to the season for McLaren as well, as they take a 1-2 here at Spa. And Jungi Engel, well done to him being able to attack the Alpine on the final lap and stay in front. It was very close in towards the final chicane as well, with the Alpine and Milan as well, who had to go off track as he almost ran into the back of the Alpine. And of course, and also what happened was KDRDN getting spun around by Kingsman coming out of the final corner of the final lap and facing the wrong direction, which is why he lost a couple of positions, and in the end he retired on track. So quite chaotic final lap, but incredible victory for McLaren and Polamachi, and certainly one they want to look back on for the remainder of the season, something they want to replicate in upcoming races this season. But Polomacci is your winner here at Spa, and 2 for 2 it seems like. So he is looking to put himself into the fight for the championship. He certainly has now, after winning the opening 2 races, and now can he build that momentum and maintain that momentum towards a potential championship at the very end of this season.
And the next race is in Texas, and guess what? It was Polomacci who won there after a dominant display of driving. His teammate fell backwards at the time, also being retired from the Grand Prix. It was a 10-second gap he built up and wasn't under pressure also. It looks like one of his favourite tracks are coming up next in Texas, where he dominated last season. It's 2 for 2 right now. It's the same dominance from McLaren with Jeroen Visser and Artem from last season too. McLaren seems to have the edge over everybody here in PSGL F3 tonight. But what a race. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was great, entertaining action indeed. And Milan, once again, mate, an absolute pleasure. Can you hear me still?
Oh yeah, I just didn't hear what you said there as I got out for the internet, so I'm not sure.
My foot disconnected my Well, that happened is what. Thank you so much for commentating with me. You're an absolute legend, mate. I have the pleasure to commentate with you every single week in, week out, and I thoroughly enjoy this experience with you. I know I say it every week, but it's generally true. You're one of the best commentators I've ever worked with, mate. Thank you so much. You're a legend.
Thank you very much as well. It's been a pleasure as always, and I thoroughly enjoyed it once again. I'm looking forward to next week for Kota for round 3 of the season. But that's it for tonight then, and I certainly enjoyed it once again. So thank you very much, and well, look on for next week.
We'll be back with you at 8 o'clock for F3 at the Texas race in the Kota United States Grand Prix, and we'll see you all later. Enjoy the Brazilian Grand Prix this weekend. It is on, and we'll see what happens in the championship fights in the real life F1. So I'll see you all later. Goodbye for now, and take care. Have a good week.